Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Ciphr with our friends at Instant Impact. Today we're looking at how to get your hiring processes in shape. I'm delighted to be joined today by two experts from Ciphr and Instant Impact. So I'm Catherine, I'm Head of Content here at Ciphr. I'm joined by Lucy O'Callaghan, who's Head of Talent here at Ciphr. Hi Lucy, nice to have you with us today.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we've got Franco Matteo, who's Associate Talent Director at Instant Impact. Welcome Franco, how are you?
Hi, yeah, very good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Just to introduce you to what we're going to talk about today before we kick off the webinar fully, we're going to take a look at the state of the UK labour market, share some scary statistics about the challenges that SMEs are facing here when it comes to hiring, and then dive into the internal and external hiring challenges that are facing UK organisations at the moment. And Frank is going to share some practical tips on setting up robust processes for hiring success. And Lucy's going to share some lessons from what we've done here at Ciphr, how we've evolved our own hiring processes as the company goes through a growth phase, and also as we try to hire hard to find talent, particularly in the tech space. And then we're going to offer some advice on how to get started with assessing your own hiring strategy and where you might be able to introduce areas for improvement. At the end, I'll offer a quick recap, and we can put your questions to both Franco and Lucy at the end. So if you have a question at any time, send that through in the questions box and we'll get to those at the end. This session is being recorded and the recording will be sent to you automatically later today. There's no need to request a copy, that will just come through via email. Before I hand over to Lucy, I just want to tell you a little bit about Ciphr in case you haven't come across us before. Ciphr is a UK provider of integrated HR, learning, recruitment and payroll solutions. We're trusted by more than 600 UK organisations across the UK. We won't be looking at any of our products or services in great detail today. It's more about offering you tips from our experience to improve what you're doing in your organisation. So if you want to learn more about anything that Ciphr does, you can email us at info@ciphr.com. or you can use the exit survey at the end of the webinar to request more information about our products and services. You can also use that exit survey to request more information about Instant Impact should you wish to do so. And with all of that admin bit out of the way, I'm going to hand over to Lucy now, and I'll be back with you towards the end of the webinar. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, Catherine. So yeah, the state of the UK labour market, and I always say I've been in recruitment longer than I care to talk about, but the challenges are always quite similar in terms of resourcing, but currently the state of the UK labour market, there are some certain specific challenges that are definitely impacting recruiters all across each sector. So if we have a look at some information, some stats we've put together for you. So generally on a survey that we undertook, 42% of employers have hard to fill vacancies, which is almost half of the UK labour market, and whilst the stats are there, also the discussion on recruitment forums and sites that we're on, people are always discussing about the challenges. It's not just a case of looking at a CV anymore and having a bunch of candidates that are coming through ready to go. There's a huge amount of work that's put in for every single role, so that's quite a startling percentage. Average time to hire, generally we say it's 5.8 weeks. So generally that's well over a month per vacancy that you have at the moment, which is, if you think about the resources and the time and the energy and also that candidate experience, is a long time to be engaging with someone in a recruitment process. So it's really, really important to have a awareness of your current statistics of the UK labour market. 40% of employers have made counter offers in the past 12 months. So when those candidates are coming through, handing in their resignations, those employers are working really, really hard to try and retain those employees. And we've noticed a real shift in that at Ciphr, where candidates are being counter offered more and more. So it's one of those things that we need to make sure that we are giving that candidate the best experience from day one, which we'll talk a little bit more later. 40% of counter offers for a higher salary, so 38% match the competitor's salary. So it is very much a case of candidates are either coming through and they're maybe unhappy, they're having a bad day, whatever it might be, but they are being offered the salary that they are potentially looking for, they haven't been offered previously, and sometimes it's better the devil you know. So candidates are much more likely to accept a counter offer if they're current salary needs are matched with their competitors, depending on their experience with the interview process that they've been in. And 81% of UK businesses recruited in Q2 2023, which is huge considering the post-COVID recruitment slump. It's definitely back in terms of recruitment. People are recruiting, they're realigning, and they are actively looking for candidates in the market. And 57% of businesses were confident they could recruit people. 57% of businesses were confident they would recruit people they need in Q3 2023. So the confidence is high in terms of where people are looking, in terms of what they are looking for, but it's just a case of luring those candidates in, and that's what we're going to talk about later. And if we have another look at our next slide, which is a little bit more information about that candidate experience, which in my mind is one of the most important parts of that recruitment process. So 44% of businesses don't reply to candidates within 4 weeks of receiving their application, and that is one of the biggest bugbears I hear when I'm talking to candidates in the processes. They are sending out countless applications and they are hearing nothing back. So candidate ghosting is a huge problem in the recruitment world, and it's something which is easily addressed, but it's one of the main factors for candidates at annoyance in a candidate process. 47% of candidates who had recently accepted a job offer said they were still open to offers, and that is one of the things we talk about. We call it the danger period here, where we go, yeah, we've got an offer, but it's not just a case of sitting and waiting for that person to start. They are still being approached, their CV's still out there, applications are still out there, and something might spark their interest and they'll have that conversation. So it's a real important time, that time between offer and starting, to make sure that candidate is not only offer accepted but secured and starting on that first day. 50% of job seekers have backed out of a job offer before starting, which is the worst feeling in the world as a recruiter. But yeah, that's absolutely right. There's nothing worse than people saying yes to an offer and then actually 2 or 3 weeks later turning it down because they've got a better offer. So that is a huge statistic. Half of job seekers have backed out. So that's something we really need to work hard to mitigate. 94% of job adverts don't disclose salary information, which is a huge thing. And it's one that people talk about all the time in the world of recruitment. So it's that classic competitive salary. And it's a huge thing for candidates. They don't know whether to waste their time to apply for a job that's either salary is too low or the benefits or whatever it might be. So UK companies aren't disclosing that information. And 35% of candidates receive 4 or more offers during that process. So they are in demand, these candidates. So we need to make sure that our offering is the best in terms of luring that candidate in, securing them and making them feel valued and feel like excited and engaged with joining that process. And 46% of recruiters say it takes more than a week to carry out right to work checks, which is a long time in terms of the admin and the time taken for HR teams. So it's a huge percentage of time where it's that sort of up in the air time for candidates, recruiters and companies alike. So challenges facing UK SMEs, and I can talk on this subject quite nicely because I am working for one at the moment, and I've worked for many SMEs over the years. But if we go into that challenges area, I've put together kind of a bit of a list where we can look at what those challenges are. And the first one is the classic budget constraint. It's everything from limited resource for recruitment resources and attracting candidates, so job boards. Can we invest in an ATS? Can we invest in job boards? Whatever that might be, or it might even just be that salary versus the market. Your budget for this particular role that you've carved out doesn't match the market expectations, and you're finding amazing candidates that you can't actually afford to offer to. So that is one of the biggest ones we hear about, and I've definitely experienced it over my time in recruitment as well. It's one of those things. I always want to offer everyone lots of money, but apparently you have to probably stick to those budgets in that situation. Talent retention, the difficulty in retaining existing talent while sourcing new talent, and that's a really difficult thing to balance. It's all about ensuring that your work environment is good, that people are getting good work-life balance, they're getting that opportunities for growth, and that you're really listening to your staff. But that talent retention is a huge one, because you might have people in the business who are fantastic and amazing and brilliant at their jobs, but if they're feeling unfulfilled, then they will leave, and there will be probably 10 employers that are willing to offer them a new role. lack of internal recruitment skills. And I'm a big advocate for this, obviously, as someone who works within internal recruitment, but having insufficient in-house recruitment expertise really does harm a business's potential for growth, because a lot of the time you probably experience it where HR teams are tasked with the whole HR 360 experience, but also that recruitment experience. And in my opinion, recruitment is a bit of a full-time job, where you are working with those candidates, you're sourcing and selecting, you're building up those relationships, and not having that in-house experience means that you're not going to have an effective recruitment process. And long hiring processes, that's the one we hear about all the time. It's those hiring managers that want to do 40-stage interviews. They want them to meet every single person in the team. They want them to do presentations and tests and whatever it might be. But those long hiring processes are all candidates talk about the fact that they are turned off by that process. They don't want to be involved in it. They would rather go with a company that's willing to do 2 or 3 stages, get them in, see their value, and go from there. So that's a really, really big player. When we are doing recruitment here, we're always looking at the process. How can we make it as streamlined, as effective as possible to make sure that our candidates are getting a good experience? We're also getting what we need to see in that process. And inefficient technology is a huge one. So if you've got an outdated or inefficient HR and recruitment package of software, it's going to mean that your processes are a lot longer. You haven't got that automation option. You are going to be doing everything manually, which makes everything a lot longer, which means that you're not going to be as effective as you need to be, especially if you're trying to work at high volume. So that's a really, really important one. You need to have good software in order to be in a really effective, high-performing recruitment function. And poor employee branding is a huge one. We've noticed a lot more that candidates we are speaking to at Ciphr are telling us that before they came even spoken to us or replied to our email or called us back, they're looking at our Glassdoor, they're looking at our Indeed. And if there's people out there who are looking and researching it, you need to make sure that your brand is out there and your brand is on point and it's speaking how you want to be your candidates to hear. So that's a really, really important one. Resistance to change is another one. It's all well and good putting in your new recruitment processes and strategies, but actually if your employee or management team aren't open to it, then it's not going to work. So adapting to modern recruitment practices is really, really important, not just for a recruitment team, but for your business overall. And communication gaps is a huge one. So a misalignment between HR, hiring managers and executive will break down your recruitment process quite quickly. So what you don't want in a recruitment process is confusion, a lack of information, and you don't want to be coming down to a point where you've got a great candidate, but you don't know what you need to offer them, who's going to be reporting to, whatever it might be. So communication gaps is so essential that you get those ironed out, filled in, and processes to make sure that that doesn't happen going forward as you move on in that process. And onboarding challenges, it doesn't just stop. I always say it doesn't stop when you offer them, it stops when they've been with the business 2 years, and that might be a bit dramatic. But actually it's the case where it doesn't stop at offer stage. You need to make sure they're having a great induction process. You need to make sure the managers are on board with onboarding them. You need to make sure that that candidate, when they become an employee, is being treasured and looked after and feel part of that process from day one and onwards until they feel like they have got a really good grasp where you can hand them over to that team that is going to carry on your good works. So that's your internal challenges, and the external challenges is the next battle. And I feel like recruitment is a bit of a battle, but in a good way. We enjoy those challenges, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. But competitive market, high demand for skilled professionals in various industries is a big thing, especially where we work at the moment in tech. There's always people that are looking for that next tech person, and so you need to think of interesting ways to engage with those people. And skilled shortages, we've noticed that, and it's not just in our industry, across the industry, with things like with Brexit and with other implementations that we talked about a little bit later, but it's causing skills gaps within the market, and also means that it's tough for us when we have got roles that the talent pool is smaller, so we are fighting with other equally good people to lure those candidates in, get them in, secure them, and get them to see that we're the best employer to have. Not that I'm biased in any way. And Brexit, we've talked about that, but obviously it's still something that is absolutely impacting the market, and it's a huge thing all the way from even in our world, where we aren't particularly, we didn't think it would impact us in that sense, but we still need to make sure that we are hiring the right people, and we've got a huge amount more checks and things that we need to do. But across all industries, Brexit has impacted the and added to the complexities in hiring EU nationals, which is really impacting a huge number of people. And that demand for flexibility, and I think that's something that's always in the news at the moment, is though it's the return to the office, it's the hybrid workers. But since COVID especially, that we have noticed a real uplift in candidates demanding and seeking flexible either work hours or location, and they expect that companies are going to adapt to that hybrid work model. So in order to make sure that we make ourselves as appealing as possible, we have to really look at how we can adapt and be in that hybrid world, which is a really, really important thing for us. And it's a new thing in terms of 5 days a week in the office was the norm, and it's no longer, and it's only changed quite quickly in the last 3 years or so. So we are still learning and we're still adapting. And again, online reputation management, we talked about it as an internal challenge, but it's definitely an external challenge. So everyone is scrutinizing our employer reviews. They're looking at our branding, they're looking at our careers site, they're looking at what we are doing to look after them as an employee. So having that online reputation management process is really, really important to make sure that we are giving ourselves the best chance to find the best people at the right time.
Thank you, Lucy. That was a really comprehensive look at the scale of challenges facing talent teams and the HR teams they're working in, and a bit daunting really to see it all laid out like that. So I'm going to bring Franco in now and ask us to share some tips from Instant Impact's work as an outsourcing RPO provider. Franco, if you could unmute yourself and pop your camera on, that would be great. There you are, brilliant, fantastic.
Hello.
Hi. I'll hand over to you, take it away.
Hi, so yeah, I'm Franco. I'm a talent director at Instant Impact, which is an RPO business focused on providing long-term talent solutions for small to medium-sized businesses. Typically, Instant Impact will partner with businesses providing sort of team, tech, and resources to set up a world-class talent function for them. So I personally have around 10 years of recruitment experience across agency and in-house recruitment roles, most recently spending 2.5 years building a talent function and leading global recruitment for the Instant Group, which is a mid-size professional services organisation. Probably worth noting at this point that it's an Impact and Instant Group. The names are purely coincidental. Can get a bit confusing, but just purely coincidental. I joined the Instant Group in 2021 as they were about to start quite a significant growth journey, expanding their head office, sales, operations, tech teams across the globe, and into new territories. In my first year with them, I supported them delivering on around 130 hires and putting in place the foundation and processes in place for the talent function to scale alongside the business growth. So that's a bit about me. Jumping into my practical tips for recruitment. So the first thing I did when I did join the Instant Group was to really sort of get into the business, get into the weeds, and get to know the people around me. And in those first sort of few weeks and first couple of months, just to identify what's been going well, what opportunities were present, and what could do with improving. So as a experienced recruiter or HR professional, I would say you should be able to assess the landscape fairly easily. There's always going to be classic recruitment gripes that you'll see in a lot of businesses, but the real skill that I found here is speaking to stakeholders and hiring managers and really sort of listening to what they're saying, being able to understand how that relates back to the recruitment process, and then what opportunity you have to address that. So a bit of a classic example here is, I from a hiring manager, I get on really well with my recruitment partner, but they never send me CVs fast enough. So there's an opportunity here to address speed of service. So what you'll want to do is just take that back a step and ask the right questions in order to get down to sort of what the real issue is. Are they missing expected deadlines that have been set? Have the expectations actually been set in the first place and being communicated? Are they the right expectations? So I think each of these different challenges all relate to speed of service, but they will all have different solutions and different causes to the issue. So really getting into the detail will enable you to successfully do the next step, which is to create SMART goals. Now, I think most of us will be familiar with setting SMART goals, but I've put an example down anyway, which would be, improving candidate experience NPS to from 60 to 80 within the first 6 months. I think what's really important is being able to communicate these SMART goals and be transparent with the leadership team and with the rest of the business, all of those hiring managers and everyone around you. Let them know what your intentions are, what you're working towards, and how they can help. Really create a story with these SMART goals and bring them along on the journey with you. I found it far easier when everyone's on the same side, working towards a sort of common goal, and it helps to create a bit of a partnership between talent, recruitment, and the rest of the business. So this brings me on to sort of finding the right balance between executing improvement goals and actually delivering. So this will sort of vary slightly depending on what role you play in your business and what resource that you have to hand. But in most scenarios, there'll either be a constant demand for recruitment, or you're going through just a period of growth that has hired some inefficiencies, sort of highlighted some inefficiencies, or you might just be looking to implement best practice within the recruitment function. So how do you balance delivering on the live recruitment that's happening with actually setting up processes for long-term improvement? Well, obviously SMART goals would be a good start, but it can be really tempting, depending on your situation, to sort of go in guns blazing and say, look, I want to do a complete overhaul. I really want to sort out the recruitment department. But even in an ideal world, it's with the best will in the world and impeccable planning, talent acquisition is just not that simple. There's always going to be spanners thrown in the work. There's always going to be a super unpredictable situation. So I think make sure that the goals you're setting are actually achievable whilst you're considering what resource you have available, and just simply don't bite off more than you can chew. It's really much better to do the basics, I found, really well than try to do everything to an average standard. So just nail the basics. So next up, we've got my favorite, technology. So tech is certainly your best friend. There are huge amounts of tech available in the market. It can actually be really difficult to keep up with it, especially at the pace that it's moving. It could even be daunting. So where do you start? Now, fortunately, for myself at Instant Impact, we have a team that researches and gives our talent teams the best available tech for a variety of scenarios and functions. So we can then consult directly with HR partners and business leaders on what would be best for their business. But if you're a HR professional looking, working with an RPO solution, then definitely consult your talent partner. But if not, and you are going to go alone, then do make sure you're doing some research and ensuring that you have the best tech in the best in the right places. So a really good place to start would be an applicant tracking system. So if you don't have an ATS in place, that is definitely worth considering the investment. But if you do have one, then it's equally as important to just ensure that it's right for your business, as this is going to be the hub for all things recruitment. You'll want to consider, what levels of automation does it have? What are its, what's the user experience? What's the candidate experience like for it? What sort of reporting can I pull off of it? Can it scale? If you're a growing business, is it going to be right for my business in a year or two, or are we just feeling that finding the solution for right now? Another thing to consider is lots of ATSs can now even create and manage a careers page for you. So this can be one of the first experiences of your business that a candidate has. So if you've got a careers page that has to be manually updated or could just do a bit of a facelift, then maybe take a look at an ATS that can do that for you. Outside of ATSs, I love using AI wherever I can. Although it was a bit scary at first, it's turned out to be a real game changer. So I won't even scratch the surface with here in terms of what's available, but an absolute game changer for me has been a real practical example, the introduction of AI in candidate and hiring manager interviews. So they have the ability to summarize meetings into actionable items, recap on conversations, and just whether you're sort of taking a role briefing or interviewing a candidate, you can really just focus on the individual in front of you, ask the right questions, and get everything you need without having to sort of stop and take notes or look really distracted while you're doing it in an interview situation. So I think super handy. There's loads of options out there, definitely worth looking into, and above all, it saves me a huge amount of time, and more time spent, more time saved with note taking and things like that means more time spent doing the process improvement stuff, which is what we're all here for. So if because there's so many options out there, if you would like to find out a little bit more about tech and AI in recruitment, I can highly recommend Talent Byte, which is a LinkedIn blog by Instant Impact's co-founder and CEO, Felix Mitchell, or Instant Impact's recent article on the power of disruptive tech in recruitment, which is shown here. You can find that on Instant Impact's LinkedIn page. So moving on to candidate experience. So getting candidate experience right is key to attracting good talent, and also for your brand in the market. It can sometimes get overlooked in the hiring process for a number of reasons. So a really good starting point here is just understanding what are all of your engaged candidates really thinking. If your only source of information here is candidates that you've successfully hired into the business, then the likelihood is that your data is going to be skewed, and you're only really getting half of the picture. So a really good starting point here would be Glassdoor. Glassdoor is great for insight into your business and current employee sentiment, but it's also one of the first places candidates will go to see what it's like to work for your company. Now, it's been reported that 55% of job seekers will avoid a company after reading negative Glassdoor reviews, and you might say you can't blame them. So you could be losing out on candidates before they've even applied for your vacancies, or once you've invited them in, they might check out Glassdoor and drop out of an interview process. So armed with this knowledge, I actively set out to improve Instant Glassdoor rating from a 3.3 to now averaging around sort of 4.5 out of 5 stars, which we were really pleased with. And we've also tracked to have a significant increase in quality advert applicant numbers, and people actually coming through our direct adverts, which is great. And I think I found that quite a nice sort of organic way to ensure you're getting a nice flow of reviews on Glassdoor is to introduce it into the onboarding process. So once employees have started with you, whether it's sort of 3 months in or 6 months in, just asking them to do a bit of a review on how they found the business so far, because that can really help with potential candidates looking at that and thinking, great, okay, so people are enjoying it sort of 3-6 months in, because that's the daunting bit of starting a new role, isn't it? Now, if you're looking for sort of more tangible data on how candidates are finding your interview process, you can introduce NPS scores. I think this is a super useful way of measuring someone's experience through the process, and it can give you actionable improvements as well from the feedback that you receive. Now, the best thing about NPS is that, you know, whilst it's offered through a number of platforms, it can be easy as setting up a form through, you know, Microsoft Forms, for example, and just ensuring that that gets emailed out to every candidate that interviews with you. There's plenty of free, you know, NPS calculators out there that you can put your scores into to just get sort of monthly or quarterly results. So as a, you know, if it depends on your budget, as a starting point, that, you know, Microsoft form, plug it into a free calculator and really sort of get an understanding of what your interview process looks like. And then I think even if your recruitment processes are in order, you can't ignore one of the main influences of candidate experience, and that's the hiring manager or interviewer. So it's important to share any feedback that you've received through surveys and reviews directly with interviewers where applicable, but equally as important is just general training with hiring managers on, you know, the process, addressing things like interview etiquette, the importance of timely feedback and decision making, and subjects like DE&I in the workplace. I think I found that the best way to engage here was through lunch and learn sessions, you know, which I know you'll rarely get every hiring manager into one meeting, but these can be recorded and shared, and you know, you can create process documents to share them too. And at Instant, I created a dedicated resource section on our SharePoint where hiring managers could find that training. So when new hiring managers would sort of come to me, I could just point them to a sort of dedicated resource center. So that's just a bit about candidate experience. I could talk about candidate experience all day, but I think my final sort of point would just be having the right people in the right places. I think this one goes without saying, but you know, whilst we're on the subject of recruitment, one of the best ways to ensure you are hiring the best talent into your business is to have the right people in the right place. And I think whether you are building a recruitment or TA function from scratch, or inheriting a recruiter or a team of recruiters, whoever is responsible for the recruitment in your business is going to be the first point of contact for all prospective hires, and essentially the face of the company during the interview process. So I think a good recruiter can be worth its weight in gold. I think it's something that you know, is often overlooked. You know, can we be sort of upskilling all the time? Can we be using L&D budgets to support the recruitment activity? Look, I hope that was useful. I hope there's been some sort of good takeaways there for the listeners. And obviously, yeah, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or the Q&A to find out more.
Thanks so much, Franco. Lots of food for thought there, for sure, definitely. And interesting, you're talking so much about the candidate experience. Lucy's going to talk to us a little bit about how Ciphr's enhanced its own hiring processes, and I know that candidate experience has been like absolutely at the heart of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Catherine. And this is one of my favourite topics because I'm a bit of a recruitment nerd when it comes to all things internal talent, especially. So one of the big reasons why I was brought into Ciphr was because we did not have a dedicated recruitment function at the time. Their recruitment was being managed amazingly by the people team here, but as we all know, if you're in a people team trying to do the full life cycle of an employee system, as well as trying to find good talent, it doesn't quite mesh, especially when you're in a big growth period, which is what Ciphr was in. So I was more than happy to come along, and here are a few points that we did in terms of dedicating our overhauling our process. So the first thing was a dedicated talent acquisition function, which is you know, I'm very passionate about because it was me, but we identified the fact that to achieve the recruitment goals at Ciphr, they needed to invest in that dedicated talent acquisition function. And not every company will have the similar setup, but it's not just about recruitment isn't just about reviewing CVs and booking interviews. As I imagine many of you know too well, it's that, as Franco said, recruitment is that first interaction that your candidate will have with the business. And I'm really passionate about the fact that, especially at Ciphr as well, we're very passionate about it. The fact that we are really excited to be a part of Ciphr. We love working at Ciphr. We are Ciphr employees, so we are kind of the brand ambassadors to why you would want to work at Ciphr, because we are actively living the dream and doing it ourselves. So Ciphr decided to invest in that recruitment function to level up that recruitment offering for both the candidates and us managers as well, and give them a real dedicated support in that area. Analytics as well, that's a huge part. So when we were reviewing our recruitment process and the talent function here, the first step was to kind of look at the data. We needed to get an understanding of what we were doing well and what we could improve. And to do that, we needed the cold hard facts of the analytics. So we put on our data heads, we analysed reports on everything from time to hire, cost per role, retention, anything we could get information on, we did. And we pinpointed from that the areas that we wanted to improve on based on the figures. And we set KPIs and targeted options in order to achieve those. So the analytics is really important, because it's all well and good coming in and going, yeah, we need to make things better, but until you know what's working and what's not, it's very difficult to actually go, yeah, we need to do this and this is how we're going to do it. So once we've done that, it was about clarifying our objectives. So we drew a line in the sand, and we looked at where we were now and then where did we want to be. And that's a really important thing, because sometimes beat yourself up a little bit in that recruitment function going, oh God, we're not doing this and that right. It doesn't matter. If you are able to just draw that line in the sand and go, look, this is where we're at, but I'd love to be here. Let's see how we can get there. So it's all about assessing the recruitment process and then defining clear and specific goals for revamping the recruitment process. And that's what we did. And then we created a plan about how we were going to achieve it. And the key for us is not to beat ourselves up when the plan doesn't go to plan, because as Franco says, nothing is guaranteed in recruitment. You might have the best process, best perfect candidate, best system, but that candidate might have their own views and whatever they might be. And because we're dealing with people, there will always be barriers in the way that will cause that process to manage. But as long as you've got that long-term goal and everyone's on board, then that's the key. The second thing with us, well, not the second thing, there's multiple things before that, but the next thing was involving those stakeholders, because I've learned the hard way that I can create a great process, a great new plan, I'm all ready to go, but if my stakeholders aren't involved, I might as well not bother, because they are the glue that keeps this process going. If they're excited, if they're able to get on board with why you're doing what you're doing, and it has to be everything from the senior leadership all the way through down to anyone that's involved in the hiring process at all, it's essential that they are involved, because you can have a shiny new revamped process, but it won't work without collaboration, and that comes from that stakeholder engagement and them interested, engaged and excited to be part of it. So that's what we did, and it wasn't easy because people do not like change, as we talked about earlier, but the people of Ciphr I'm obviously, again, I'm very biased, but everyone likes to get on board with something that will add value to us, which is we're very lucky to have. And job profiles, which sounds like a bit of an admin task, but actually it's a huge thing. So our people team spent a long time evaluating each and every role at Ciphr and creating a job profile for every single role that was within Ciphr. And this meant that we knew exactly what each position does. It clearly defined the expectations and the qualifications for the position, what the department did, and it aligned them against the wider structure. It may sound very simple, but actually this meant that we were able to go, this is what this department does, this is what you need to do to get it. And it really helped with not only our external recruitment, but our internal mobility as well, which is another really important part of that talent journey for people, is that ability to go, what do I need to do to become a business development executive from my role, which is a really important part. And training and development, we got all of our managers in workshops for training and development over the interview process, and it was everything from sourcing to how to review CVs to how not to be biased in interviews, how to do effective interviewing. They were doing role playing. It was all consuming for a good few weeks to get every single manager or anyone involved in that hiring process trained and educated on why we're doing what we're doing. And it's not just an old school way of sitting down with a CV and reading it and asking someone to tell them about their themselves and their 3 interesting facts. It's really, really important that we were able to get in the why and the reason why we were doing what we were doing and how you needed to recruit like this. And one of the big things is we've stuck to our guns. So it's very easy to train people and just forget about what we're doing and then move back on with your old ways. But we are really, really passionate about making sure that people are using the resources that we're giving them. We've created a SharePoint place where people can get interview templates, library questions, everything and anything they need. And we will always make sure that those people are using those resources and those techniques. And if they're not, we will call them out on it because they know what they should be doing, and they know that that's what we will do. So we've had a really, really good response in that situation. Reviewed our sourcing and selection strategies. So we took a bit of a step back and reviewed our sourcing channels, what was working for us, what wasn't. Sometimes it's easy just to renew the job board that you're using or whatever it might be without kind of looking at it. So we used our analytics to establish the best channels for our candidates, and we invested in screening tools that allowed our candidates to be assessed in multiple different ways. So for one, it might be really effective with video interviewing, or for another, it might be a analytical coding test. So we really dug deep onto what worked and what didn't work for us and took a real data-driven approach on that, and that really worked well for us. And as Franco mentioned, that candidate experience, everyone in recruitment who's worth their salt knows that that's the big thing for us. So we reworked the application process to make it user-friendly, responsive and intuitive. We tried to ensure that we're communicating transparently with our candidates at each stage. And we always say, even no feedback is feedback, in terms of if we haven't got an update, we'll try and tell our candidates every single time, sorry, we've not got an update and this is why, because there's nothing worse than twiddling your thumbs on a Saturday wondering why they didn't get back to you when they told you they'd come back to you on a Friday. And we reconfigured our ATS system. So we looked at what our ATS was looking at, and we decided that actually we needed to do a bit more work on it to make sure it's a bit more effective. So we sat down with our implementation team and we completely reconfigured it to make sure that it was completely streamlined as possible. And it had a real big impact on our ability to kind of process and communicate with our candidates well. And then we also looked at our employer brand, and we spent a load of time on that with Glassdoor and the likes of Indeed, and we're still working with them. And we spent and they gave us a load of data and analytics, where people were spending time on our sites and what information they were using and how they were using it. And that information we were able to drive where we're putting our information. What updates do people want to see? What's the breakdown of male and female visits to our sites? What are people looking at? It was a really, really interesting time for us to use that analytics. So the main thing for us was using that information to actually build on that employer brand side of things. And then just evaluating. Regular performance and evaluations meant that we could always see the key metrics and analytics and tracking the effectiveness of the revamp process. So it's all about being okay with the fact that your hiring process is where it is, making those plans and getting those plans implemented with everyone on board. That was the key things for us. And it, over the 3 years that I've been at Ciphr, has massively improved, evolved and changed, and we're still changing and evolving, and I'm excited about what that next step looks like for us. So very much a great part. And one of the biggest parts of our process was the onboarding process, which was launched. Our brand new onboarding process was launched in early this year, and it's called Ciphr VIP, which I've got a bit. I think we've got a slide for Catherine on the next slide, but this is as the business grew, as Ciphr grew. When I joined, it was quite small. The recruitment was quite low, but as the volume of recruitment grew, and our vision and our growth plan grew, we identified a learning need to support new starters with accessing all the information they needed to know when they were joining new to the business. Things like, what's our working style at Ciphr? What are our products? What are our benefits? What does that department over there do that we have no idea, but we see them come in every Wednesday or whatever it might be? So we looked at the data and we noted that our employees that left within the first 12 months was a lot higher than we would like. So in order to address that, we realised that we needed to set our new joiners up for success in order to effectively innovate, work collaboratively, and provide our customers ultimately with the best service possible. So our learning development team sat down and leveraged our Ciphr LMS software that we have, and developed an interactive learning journey for anyone joining the business. So it's basically a journey that is designed to equip new joiners with every single thing that they need to know for their first 1 to 2 weeks at Ciphr. It's designed to be a self-paced, bite-sized learning module, and the information can be accessed at any time. So they might have completed a bit, but they can go back and go, oh, this is our benefits over here, or this is what that team does, or this is that information here. And the feedback from our new starters has been completely, it's night and day in terms of that feedback. So people have fed back that they felt empowered, they felt part of Ciphr, they understood what they wanted, what other teams did, and why they were working in such a way. And it's really investing in that induction journey has revolutionized our new starter experience from that day one moment, and it's really changed the way that the induction and the onboarding has taken place at Ciphr. So it's one of our as a people team, we're really proud of the work that they have done, especially in that L&D function. So looking at how you can overhaul your process. I mean, we've talked a lot about that candidate experience and everything. So this is just a bit of a quick guide into how you would look at it. So assessing your current process, draw that line in the sand, look at where you're at the moment and what you could do better and how you could do it, and have a look at your objectives. So once you've drawn that line in the sand, have a look at your data, use that data to get that, and set your clear objectives about what it is you want to achieve. And it doesn't have to be an overwhelming 20,000 list. It might be 3 things that you want to achieve in that 12-month period. Make sure that you set those goals and look at the measures as you go along. So, and celebrate the little wins is what I always say. If you had an improvement on your Glassdoor rating, you can celebrate that. If you've had your attrition rate might be going down, you can celebrate that. It's all about that level of detail. Engage with your stakeholders, get them on board with the processes, the plans, the why, and the reason why you're doing what you're doing. And create detailed job descriptions. It's not just a case of just putting out bullet points of what the job you'll be doing in the job. Candidates want to see everything they will be doing. They want to feel part of it. They want more information. The more information, the better. And make those available to your rest of your team so they understand that process. And diversify your sourcing. So utilize different platforms. You don't have to stick with the old school job boards anymore. There's so many different options out there. You can look at job boards, social media, employee referrals. You can go to job fairs, networking events. Look at your market that you're recruiting into and see what works best. It might be that you're recruiting in an area that really works best with face-to-face career day situations. Then you don't have to stick with what the traditional recruitment channels are. And streamline your application process. In my world, there's nothing worse than a long application process where you have to put all your GCSE results and A-level results and how many times you went on the Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award or whatever it might be. I think the candidates want one-click apply if they can, or they want to make sure that they are not in that holding pattern for too long. So once they've applied, you want to minimize those delays and wait times for your candidates, and coordinate interviews effectively, get everyone on board with that process from day one. So once you're having that job briefing call, set out the plan, set and agree actions with that stakeholder to make sure that they are on board with that plan. And I'm always a big fan of calling them out and saying, look, we've agreed this is causing an impact, and have a good relationship, and having a good relationship with your stakeholders is really key. And standardize your interviews. So make sure that everyone is fully aware of your interview process. Make sure that everyone is getting fair and equal treatment, and making sure that it's effective will allow an easier way to evaluate your candidates in terms of scoring, interview templates. Create a load of interview template guides, and make sure that your stakeholders are able to easily access those information. And assess skills and cultural fit is really, really important. So being able to evaluate candidates for both technical skills and cultural alignment is really, really important. So whether that's via a screening tool or whatever that might be, that will allow you to see the candidates, not only the candidate's potential, but their skill set and also their ability to undertake the role and in that perfect time. And also just make sure that you are giving timely feedback and maintaining those open communications. That's really, really important. So those are just a few points on how you can kind of look at overhauling your recruitment process. And it is sometimes a bit daunting, but the key is to make sure that you are engaged, you're interested, and it's a really interesting world once you get your head into it about how you can add value to your recruitment process. And there's a load of easy wins in order to do that.
Thanks so much, Lucy. I love that recap of all the work that you guys have done, because it just reminded me of how much it had changed here, and how much when I was last doing a hiring round, how much your team supported me. And I must say, like, as a hiring manager, those training workshops, that library of interview questions, teaching me how to standardize interview questions and assess the questions numerically and offer robust, comprehensive, consistent feedback to candidates. It just made such a world of difference with hiring the recruits that I got then, and that was 18 months ago, and both of them are still with the company and are performing really well. So I think that just shows like how valuable an impact you can have if you get that recruitment process right, and if you're able to support line managers. You weren't hand-holding me through it, but you set out all the boundaries and had all the resources on hand. And I knew if I needed help, I could call you guys. And it was yeah, really helpful. So thanks, Lucy.
I'm glad. It's always good to have live feedback. That's what we like to hear.
Exactly. Yeah, I had just forgotten how much work and all those training courses. Like, I hadn't forgotten the content. I had just forgotten that they'd happened. become just typical, usual stuff. So before we dive into questions, if you have questions for Franco or for Lucy or for both of them, just send them in using the control panel on your screen now. I'm just going to recap a few of the points that we talked about. We know UK employers are facing an uphill struggle when it comes to hiring. 42% of organisations say that they have hard to fill vacancies. There are lots of external challenges you can't influence, but there are plenty of internal challenges that you can tackle. And those are things like upskilling your line managers and how to hire, updating your tech stack, and improving your onboarding journey. And we saw how Ciphr's used its LMS product, that's Ciphr LMS, to construct an onboarding journey which takes new candidates through those essential needs to know when they start. And actually all of us now have pretty much completed, all existing staff have pretty much completed that journey too, so we're all up to a standard level of knowledge. We also heard from Franco about carrying out a SWOT analysis and setting those SMART goals. They can help figure out what you want to achieve, when and how you're going to get there. But long-term improvements to your hiring processes require ongoing changes and continuous monitoring. And this monitoring might be in the form of metrics like a candidate NPS score, which you can collect through tools that are probably part of your Office suite, like Microsoft Forms, or Glassdoor reviews, for example, or you can collect data from your ATS, such as time to hire. So with that, I'd like to bring Lucy and Franco back. Lucy's already there. Franco might come back if I can get his camera on. And they're here to answer your questions. We've got about 5 minutes, so if you have questions, please send them in for Lucy and Franco. In the meantime, I will ask my own questions of you guys just while we wait for the audience to send theirs in. And I wanted to ask was, how can you go about getting C-suite level buy-in for these hiring processes improvements, which might need a bit of investment, whether that's in terms of staffing up or whether that's in terms of new technology? Franco, do you have a view on that one, sort of demonstrating the need for financial investment and resourcing?
Yeah, I think you know, you shouldn't take any sort of different approach within recruitment as you would in any other area of the business when you are trying to get sort of C-level buy-in, whether it's sort of new tech or up or you know, scaling up the team. I think there's always got to be a solid business case behind that. So lots of sort of data and figures. I think really sort of explaining, you know, this is where we're at, but we could be here as a result of, you know, adding an additional member of staff to the team, or it could be that we're, you know, the time to hire or time to fill is super slow because the team is too stretched. And I think just explaining in that scenario, for example, that we're losing out on, you know, candidates due to hiring processes being so slow, and therefore we're not able to hire the best talent into the business. So there's your sort of reasoning. But I think, you know, as you would approach it in any other area of the business, it's just a solid business case and just really outlining what the benefits will be, or what we're missing out on.
Sure, thanks, Franco. Lucy, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think for C-suite, data is king. So if you can go back to them and say, look, our attrition is this, our retention is this is what we need, our time to hire, and then go, this is my solution, then they're always going to be more responsive than just sort of more emotive reasoning. So I think data is key in terms of a business decision. So always provide that data and then what your plan is for the next step.
Cool, thank you very much. Another question I wanted to ask was, what are your tips for collaborating with hiring managers, and particularly around like how to understand from them what they really want in a candidate when it comes to doing that initial sourcing work? Because I mean, you don't want to be sourcing a bunch of CVs you think are great and the hiring manager's like, this is just not what I'm looking for. So Lucy, you're nodding as if that sounds familiar.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we always treat each campaign as an individual experience. So one hiring manager won't recruit in the same way as the other. So for us, we just do a briefing call with each hiring manager, and we set out how they like to recruit, how involved they want to be, what they would like. And then you can do a few test the water CVs. Is this the sort of person you're looking for? Because there's nothing worse than having like 12 people lined up for a role and they go, oh God, this is not what we want. So it's all about being collaborative, being flexible, being open, and being on board and engaged with that hiring manager and that stakeholder. It's really, and then trusting you. I think that trust is really key, that you are delivering on the timescales they're looking for or communicating.
So Franco, got any tip to add to that one?
Yeah, no, I think I agree. It's about, you know, just making sure you're clear at the start of the process. Treating, like Lucy said, treating everything like, you know, it's a new campaign. Test, you know, taking example CVs to those briefing meetings is really important, because what someone says and what someone sees in a CV can be two very different things. I think what's also useful is if you have access to market insights data, so things like you know, LinkedIn talent insights, for example. If you can if you can take that market info to a briefing meeting, it'd be really useful in sort of saying, you know, I know what you're looking for is X, but actually X is a really, really small talent pool, and here's data to back it up. So I think that can really, again, data is king, right? It can support, you know, if you use it to support decisions, it'll just make things easier. Yeah,
as much as people and talent teams are people, you guys kind of have to be data people now as well, to get those decisions right and to make your life easier. And my final question was going to be, if you don't have a specific talent function, or are you thinking about setting one up, what kind of advice would you have it? I know you guys will come at this from quite different perspectives. So Franco, perhaps you can talk a little bit about how RPO partner might work in that instance if you don't have a specific internal talent function.
Yeah, so if you are looking at it from an RPO perspective, or you want to outsource recruitment, you don't have the resource in house. I'd speak to the initial conversation will be just understanding what's suitable, like what are your needs in terms of recruitment, what are the plans, do you have an idea of how many heads you're going to recruit over the next year or 2 years, and then essentially what we would do is map out what that might look like. So a number of heads, what tech you might need. So suggesting an ATS, suggesting LinkedIn recruiter or market mapping insights, and then selecting a talent partner that would head up that recruitment, usually with the expertise within an industry, or if it's a sort of a really heavy tech hiring business, for example, we would want to bring in on that RPO solution someone that has got that experience. So like a sort of a real expert. So I think the first step would just be to have a chat with if you're looking at outsourcing, have a chat with the guys at Instant Impact, just to understand sort of what the solution looks like, and what it would look like tailored for your business.
Cool, thank you. And then Lucy, coming at it from the other perspective, if you're thinking about making that first talent manager or head of talent hire, what's that like for you? Like, for example, coming to Ciphr and just starting up that talent function of the people team?
Yeah, generally, it will probably be coming from a people team who've been doing the recruitment themselves. So find someone who is engaged, who's interested, who's hands-on, who wants to kind of come in and shape that team, like me. But also that ability to kind of be involved in everything. Get someone who's getting stuck in, and if you need to outsource it, be mindful of what you want. So an RPO is great as long as they're on track with your vision, your values. They can be a really valuable resource in terms of feeling like you're part of the organisation, which is great.
Awesome, thanks guys. And that brings us to nearly the end of our session. So just remains for me to say thanks Franco and Lucy for joining us today and sharing all of that information. And thank you to everyone on the call who's joined us as well. We hope you found this interesting and useful. If you've been watching this live, this has been recorded and the recording will be emailed to you automatically later today. If you'd like to learn more about Ciphr solutions, they do include central HR software, our ATS iRecruit, as well as our onboarding portal and the LMS, which we've used internally as part of our onboarding journey. You can opt in using the exit form on your screen after the broadcast, or you can email us at info@ciphr.com and one of our experts would be delighted to talk to you a bit more about that. You can also use that exit form to share some feedback about today's webinar, and we always appreciate that as well. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Franco and Lucy. It's been great to have you with us. We hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care. Thanks very much. Bye.